Oh my goodness. Wasn't that exciting?
The music that Dan says gets him a takedown notice every time.
It does. It does. But if you were paying attention, there's new graphics in there. Who would have guessed?
I saw a few new ones. Yeah.
Had to be watching. So this is the EriDan Film Festival, and this is not Dan. And so we are just starting off cold tonight, bringing everybody in fresh to get a jump on this night. It's double feature night, and I have no idea if the link works at EriDanLive.com. So I'm not sure if you join that way or not. But if you can't, Joe, I guess I'll throw this in the chat. I'll throw the official link so you can join us there in 800 chats. Feel free to join us tonight. We're going to talk movies and all sorts of fun stuff. And so we've got Adam and Dave and Stacy and Wade are already in the house, ready to talk some fun-filled movie madness. How's everybody doing?
Cool.
The post-it note says,
excited?
The post-it note says this seat is reserved from Adam's beard. And then above the post-it note, it says, "Eat me, eat me."
Yeah. And
yes. Subtle messages.
No, wait, you can use that to sneak snacks into the theater.
Sneak snacks.
Like, wait, I got some Junior Mints in here from
Milk Duds.
Milk Duds. Oh, an entire beard of Milk Duds. That would be
That'd be like a dress made out of safety pins.
That's true. All right, now, so I didn't play intros for anybody, so I'm not going to play intros for anybody all night. I'm going to be terrible and just drop people in. So if you're joining us, get ready, because all of a sudden, bam!
Okay, whoa. Man.
It's Amanda. I know, it's a wild night.
It's pretty
We're
insane.
wacky. We're out of control.
Whoa.
It's a double feature night. I figured we'll mix it up a little bit.
Live on the edge. Yeah, go for it.
That's what I figured. No Dan? So why, there are no rules. Dan's not here to oppress us with his rules of the way we have to do things.
The man isn't here to tell us what to do.
He's all about the organization and the rules. So we will fight the power. We can say whatever we want.
We'll stick it to the Dan.
Let's talk some movies. We got a double feature here presented by Adam. Let's go chronologically. Go in the years released.
One of them's time travel. How does that fit?
Nope. That still makes this one first. So we're going to go to A Hard Day's Night, featuring the Beatles from 1964, rated G. All the Beatles and Wilfred Bramble and Norman Rosington in this Richard Lester directed movie, which made $2.4 million at the box office. The critics absolutely adoring this movie with a 99, audience 89. Adam, what made you choose A Hard Day's Night?
I was scrolling through Max and I had never seen it before, and my dad was, well, he still is. He's a Beatles fan, and I used to listen to the Beatles growing up alongside other music, and I'm like, I'll check it out, and watched it and was pleasantly surprised, because I know it's I guess technically it's a musical, but at the same time it's not. Well, that's the thing. It's a musical, but it's their song, so it's like I like the song, so I figured I'd probably like it because I like their music. Yeah. So it's not like it's like stage songs or like songs from a play or something.
Right.
It was actually closer to something like That Thing You Do, where the songs are supposed to be songs. It's not just people randomly bursting into song in the middle of a subway.
Well, yeah, they did bust in a song in the train. So this was my first time. Was this anybody else's first time? Oh,
I've seen parts of it, but my first time seeing the whole thing all the way through. Yeah.
Wow. So there we go. We got lots of people exposed to this movie. Thoughts?
I love it, but I also agree that it probably doesn't age as well in some respects, because in the era where the Beatles the last performance by the Beatles was over 50 years ago now. And so for a lot of people, the Beatles are just another band that their parents or grandparents liked. And so if you don't have any context for Beatlemania, and you don't have any context for what a phenomenon they were,
Yeah.
I think this movie would be a bit of a head scratcher for you.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the Beatles are great in this movie. I think the music is great in this movie. I think the movie is crap.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, because I was struggling to really conceive of this as a movie. It's more just like an excuse to have a lot of shots of the Beatles running around, playing with each other, which is fun. But like, there's no plot to speak of.
Well, I mean, I kept thinking I kind of wish they were actually performing as opposed to just lip syncing. I'm like, well, maybe that would make the music feel, because I get it in the day when you were, 1964, you were listening to either you had the Beatles records or you were waiting for them to come on the radio. To be able to go and see this basically concert of the Beatles, which is just all their songs back to back, that would be super exciting. And when they released it, 6 of those songs were new. So, I mean, I get why there was such hype in 1964. I was amazingly annoyed by Grandpa.
Yeah, I
enjoyed him.
I liked him.
I didn't hate him. I just felt like
I'm like, oh man, that was like, I don't know. I mean, it was a bit. Yeah, well, it's funny because so obviously this wildly inspired the Monkees, right?
This was the inspiration for the Monkees. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where there are parts of this movie that are directly ripped off. Right? Like there are shot for shot remakes.
Oh, wow.
like climbing through the car to get to the other car and,
and jumping over the camera and making silly faces as they quick dissolve to the camera. Those are absolutely things you see in the Monkees all the time. And this is the problem where I went, yeah, I wish this movie was 22 minutes. That's how long I needed for this storyline was 22 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, it is cool to see the Beatles, okay, does anybody else? All right, so here's the problem in hindsight. Knowing how the Beatles ended, knowing how the Beatles didn't really get along afterwards, did you feel some of the camaraderie was forced, or did you buy it all?
No, because at this point in their career, they were still really close.
Yeah.
Well, then it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I agree with that. I read a book about the Beatles. I think it was more about John Lennon. It was like really thick, like a biography. And they were close. And then it just like a lot of friendships and working relationships just fell apart, especially something where you're so picked apart in the media and there are 4 different personalities there, and your fan base doesn't like all 4 of you necessarily. They like, well, I like Paul, I like John, I like Ringo, I like the other guy, George. Sorry, I can never remember his name.
George.
He looks exactly the same, though.
Georgie Georgeson. Yeah.
So I think that there was so much pulling them apart anyway that they weren't. It is sad.
I understand. Dan and I have this problem all the time. No, I mean, I'm a huge Beatle fan. I would put on the Beatles records at my parents' house, and I would sing into a vacuum cleaner that had like a handle that came up like a microphone, and it was the right height for me.
It kept sucking my lips in.
Oh yeah, it totally sucked. But yeah, but it was I love the music. And it just made me want to go listen to more Beatles music.
But this to me is peak Beatles. This is when the Beatles were, in so many ways, at their absolute pinnacle. They were a massive success both in America and in Britain. They were still getting along and enjoying each other's company. They were still excited about their success. They hadn't gotten jaded yet. They hadn't gotten tired of the constant pressure yet. They hadn't sort of been crushed by the load of everything that they were.
Exactly.
And so this is a snapshot of sort of the absolute perfect moment in Beatles' arc. It was only like 3 months after this that they stopped touring, for example. And didn't play another live show until the rooftop concert. So everything was just about to change.
Yeah.
Well,
this is 1964.
They didn't come to America till 1968, though, right?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're Ed
All right.
Sullivan
They
variants.
played Ed Sullivan, what, in 63?
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
So I've gone to watch movies like this with Reagan. We went to see Justin Bieber movies every time they came out. And but they're sort of similar where, it's kind of the him and things he's doing and stupid things he's doing and then, music. And so, I kind of related to it that way.
February 64 is when the
Yeah,
Beatles
I just-
Ed Sullivan, yeah.
It'll be 60 years in a couple of
Oh.
days.
Yeah.
2 days.
Whoa.
But no, I agree. This is one of the first early rock concert films, Wade, like you're talking about. That, so, now you can see the Jonas Brothers and you can see
So they kind of
behind the scene,
a lot of people have done this since then.
I don't think that they've added the fiction to it, though, that the Beatles did. With
No, Justin Bieber's grandfather was played by Rod Stewart.
that would be cool. I'd watch it again.
Rick Springfield.
I will say that if you, in some ways, there's a little bit of a similarity between tonight's two movies in that one of the things that holds them back a little bit is if you weren't into the Beatles, if you didn't know sort of what the context was of this movie's not going to be as enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
And the same way with Days of Future Past, you're coming in the middle of a movie series. And I think if you haven't seen the other movies, it probably isn't as good for you.
Yeah.
And I like the Beatles well enough. I don't know the Beatles super well. Like I'm familiar with a lot of their music. It's pretty in the culture, and I like the music well enough. I can't tell them apart very well because it's black and white and they're all wearing the same outfits.
Yeah.
So I don't. I knew
Wow, Amanda.
I could tell
No
them
one
they were,
Beatle, you know them all.
I'll
That's
bet
a
she knows their
disconnect.
names, Stacey, though.
I know all their names. Yeah, like that. I do know that, but and I know who they are historically, but I can't tell them apart well because they're all.
Well, when the screenwriter was working on this, he sort of watched their footage of them in news conferences and read articles about them, and he deliberately sort of came up with a stereotype for each of them. Where Paul was the cute one, and John was the sarcastic one, and Ringo was the he had these personas, and that's how he sort of wrote the shtick for them.
So you
and I
left
can
George
think
out
of it-
too.
Ringo had his weird little sideline of you like reading books. Heck yeah, you should stop reading that book and go crazy.
You're a photographer.
Yeah. But it was fun seeing them running around in their prime, but also it was just kind of weird as a movie because it was really just those zany kids, look at them being rascals. Oh, they're running out the fire escape. Oh, they're playing.
They were very clean.
Yeah.
That also
they were.
it felt like they were trying to force it as they're running
It was-
back, and it wasn't led into.
It was a reference to. I had to look this up. Are you familiar? Are you familiar with the series Sanford and Son, the American sitcom?
Yeah,
That was a remake of a British sitcom, Steptoe and Son. The guy who played the grandfather was in Steptoe and Son, and one of their catchphrases on that was "You dirty old man."
Oh,
Oh
so
my
this was a
God.
reference to that.
So it made sense back then.
They needed to make a dirty old man joke to lead into that, and then it would have been a funny recurring gag.
Yeah.
As it was, it felt like, why are you forcing this line?
They were
It's
forcing that line a lot.
It was so annoying.
The cultural reference is lost in this
Yeah.
day and age because
Yeah,
we
50
don't
plus
see
years
Steptoe
later,
and
yeah.
Son.
Yeah.
A lot of jokes
60
don't
years
last
later.
60 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's there. I
What
don't
was-
hold it against the movie that the joke doesn't land anymore, but it
Well,
doesn't land anymore.
To me, the history of this movie is a little fascinating too, because the reason United Artists didn't care if this movie made money or not. That's not why they made it.
Right.
They made it because there was a loophole in the Beatles' Capitol contract in the U.S. that didn't cover soundtrack albums.
Oh.
So United Artists was able to bring out a Beatles album in the U.S. on their label because they made a film.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
And they didn't care if the film made money or not. It was inconsequential because they knew that the album was going to make far more.
Wow.
Well, that is interesting.
Shysters.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
what
did.
was funny is Amanda was saying she couldn't tell them apart because it was black and white. Wade kept going, "Where's John?" Front and center.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
He was right there. I'm like,
not
he's right
right
there.
here.
What are you talking about?
Right.
In this era of the Beatles, John was definitely the leader of the band. He was the most prolific songwriter. He was usually the lead singer. Paul was quite a bit, but not quite as often as John. And yeah, it was later on, like the later 60s, Paul definitely took over as the more prolific songwriter, especially after John started his heroin habit. And they sort of switched positions. But at this point, John was the leader.
To be clear, I think they all had a heroin habit, but John's
not to the degree John did. John became dysfunctional. I mean,
Yes.
to the point where he just
exactly.
his lost weekend and all of that. Yeah,
all kinds of it was a weird life these four had. It really was. I was astounded at how young they were, even because I see Paul McCartney every once in a while in news photos and stuff, and George looks exactly the same. He does look exactly the same to me, and Ringo was just freaking adorable.
George now doesn't look like that.
See, that's how I think he looks pretty close, just wrinklier.
He's been dead for a good while.
Oh,
The last time we saw him.
The last time we saw him.
Yeah, the last time. So I know he's dead, but
yeah, and I think part of the movie they used to like kind of showcase the BBC a little bit too, and it was actually the one I thought was the funniest was the director. That he was getting all freaked out that they weren't there.
That sweater, though. That sweater was awful.
That sweater was unbelievable. If you've ever seen, there's a company that makes Pop Chart. They make really interesting graphics. You're not gonna be able to see this on the screen. I've realized this. This is a giant poster that you can get that lists every Beatle song imaginable, and then which Beatle played what instruments or sang lead on each song. So it's all color coded and charted with different symbols so that you can say, all right, on this song, John sang vocals and played guitar, and Ringo played tambourine or whatever. It's amazing.
wow.
Look at that. It's only $40. What a deal.
Yeah, $40.
Get yourself a poster.
That's actual size.
It's actual size. The thumbnail.
Yeah, I will say the comedy bits were a little disjointed, and some of the humor I didn't get because of the lingo. I didn't understand what they were saying, so I was kind of like, "What?"
I didn't really think there was that much lingo. Do you remember anything specifically that was not clicking?
Well, like the thing with like them, they kept saying like you're clean and stuff like that. I'm like, what the hell do they mean?
There was that one.
You gotta Google.
It was just mostly the stuff that the grandpa said. I kind of didn't understand some of it.
Yeah,
Is it
the
wrong?
accent was pretty thick.
Is it wrong to call women birds? Is that acceptable anymore in England?
That's so
It certainly was well into the 70s, maybe the 80s.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny how they were already playing back then into the whole notion about Ringo being like the forgotten Beatle, because like, at the end he's like, I'm tired of this. I'm going to go off and do whatever. And, because no one ever remembers him. They remember the other three, but he never gets remembered.
The weird thing is, though, in polls in the 60s, the people in the UK were scratching their heads wondering what was wrong with us, because Ringo was the most popular Beatle in the US for several years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think people just liked his personality. He was just sort of, he seemed a little less full of himself. He seemed a little more real.
Yeah.
Peace and love. Peace and love. All right, let's do this. All right, so I have like 80 buttons to push, so we're gonna see how well this goes. All right, Adam.
I'd never seen this before, and I just wanted to check it out, and it was enjoyable. I like the music a lot. Like I said, some of the comedy was kind of off kilter. I kind of didn't get it, but it was good to just see them like just acting like, well, for the most part, acting just like normal people and not, superstars or whatever. And it's something. I mean, when I watch it again, I probably watch it again because it's not long. It's only like an hour and a half long, so
it's not bad.
It's something that's not super long. But I mean, in no way it's a perfect movie at all. So with all that said, I'd give it probably a 90
90. That's a lot
Yeah.
of love. That's great. Nice. All right, Dave.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's hard to rate a movie that probably was much more impactful in the era it was released than it would be now. So that's sort of, you sort of try to figure it. How do you rate that? It is interesting though, because one of the things that was a theme throughout the movie was sort of the Beatles trying to get away from their handlers and their management and just sort of get off on their own.
Wacky kids.
Well, but interestingly, there was just a piece of artwork that was done in their tour of Japan that came up for auction, and auctioned for like, I don't know, it was like $2 million. It was the only piece of artwork that all four of them had ever done together. They actually sat around a table in Japan and they each painted a corner of it. And then they signed the middle where the lamp was. There was a circle that didn't have any paint in it. And the background for that was when they were in Japan, they were basically told you have to stay in your hotel room. You cannot leave, because they were afraid for their safety with all the rabid fans. Plus, there were people that were upset at the stadium they were playing because they considered it sacred sumo type stuff.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, wow.
And so John apparently, and maybe one of the others, actually did slip away for a while just to go do some sightseeing because they were just so sick of being cooped up. So there is actually some very legit background to this. I know it was sort of played as a wacky thing. Yeah, there it is.
There you go.
But it also was part of the lifestyle they were leading at that time, where handlers were telling them where to go and what to do all the time, which is part of the reason they just finally quit the road entirely, because they didn't need it anymore. They could sell as many records as they wanted to. So they just became a studio band just a few months later.
It's so interesting because nowadays you can't make money unless you tour as an artist.
Exactly. Well, you can if you own your own rights to everything. Like you have your own record label, or you just release solely online. If you go through a record label, absolutely, they will take so much of the profits, you'll have nothing left. But so I'm sort of torn, and so I'm sort of going to average my score between if I had, I was around when this came out, but I certainly wasn't old enough to appreciate it. But if I had seen it in the 60s, I probably would have been over the moon with it. And now I still enjoy it, but it certainly has suffered a bit in hindsight. So I'm sort of going to average the two and give it an 85.
85. A very respectable score. And speaking of respectable,
That's us.
I was thinking primarily about Wade, but go ahead.
Well, that's because he's wearing merch.
That's right, exactly, because he knows how to dress for the occasion.
Well, he has bought me merch and it doesn't fit because he just is illogical about picking clothing sizes for me. So anyway, this movie, when it first started off, first of all, I was a little bit creeped out because I've watched so many movies from this era that were scary, mystery, weird things. And with that grandfather, with that guy, I was just like...
I thought you were referring to during the running scenes where people were like smacking the pavement really hard. Like,
oh, man. So I was thinking it was going to take a creepy turn for a minute. And then they said, it's Paul's grandfather. I'm like, okay. So I did not like him at all. And then once he just stopped being creepy with his little weird face, it got a little bit better. And the scene where he slipped out and went to the casino area, I thought that seemed very familiar. Like I've seen it in another movie or something. I wasn't sure because I know I've never seen this movie. Maybe I've seen that part in a theater class or film class. But yeah.
Either that or it could have been copied for later stuff.
It could have been.
probably in a
I
month.
liked seeing the four of them young and silly and not all the stuff you hear about John and Yoko and all of that stuff, and the stuff I read about them, just how seriously their lives became terrible for a while. It was just really sad. So it was kind of neat seeing that. I'm not a Beatles fan. I know that I like the music sometimes, not all of it. You recognize it though. Seriously, I grew up watching the cartoon once in a while, which was really good. But they were not those were not the voices. Those guys didn't do their own voices. So but it's still very familiar because they played the music. So I just, as not a fan, and it was creepy, I think I'm going to give it a 75.
75. All right, Mr. Wade.
Yeah, so it was interesting seeing them, like she said, when they were young and they all, got along and everything was good. It kind of like watching the early Justin Bieber movies, and now, I mean, they're interesting now, but some weird stuff.
In 60 years, how will the Justin Bieber movie hold up?
Yeah, how will that hold up, huh?
Yeah.
But I guess if his music's still popular then, there might be one.
That's true.
Yeah. Like I said, the BBC side was kind of interesting a little bit. You saw they gave you a little bit of like the cafeteria where everybody's eating and putting more ketchup on their wound or something. The one guy, which is kind of silly. But I'm gonna give it an 80.
80. All right. Amanda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the Beatles. I like them well enough. I feel like I probably can't say I'm a Beatles fan because I never seek out Beatles content, but I enjoy Beatles content just fine. And but the movie was just like an hour and a half of just Beatles fan service.
Yes.
This is what this movie was. This is and I'm aware of Beatles mania. It was a big deal for a while. Hi, Dan. So it was kind of fun seeing a snapshot of that era, and it's kind of cool as footage to have, and it's neat, and it was a pleasant watch. But as a movie, there really wasn't much there. I don't know what the grandpa was even doing in the movie. I didn't mind him, but he didn't make sense in the context of anything. The clean joke was really forced, and otherwise he was kind of an instigator, but he didn't instigate that much, and no one seemed very bothered by the stuff he was doing. So I don't know what he was even doing. It was just weird. Get rid of his character, add a couple other more interesting plot stuff for the Beatles to do. I don't know. It was weird. So it was a pleasant enough thing to have on, but as a movie, it's hard for me to rate this very high when it just kind of feels yeah, just hey, you want to see some Beatles footage? Here's some Beatles footage.
Hey, you want to see some Beatles footage? I like that.
Got some Beatles stuff.
Hey, come on,
little girl, what's some Beatles?
Come into my van. Come in the van. You want to see some Beatles footage?
Yeah. So I'm going to give it a 65.
65. And there's Dan all the way from DC. Look at that.
Hi.
Hi.
I had never seen this before. And I felt like I was watching the opening to an Austin Powers movie. And then I felt like I was watching an episode of The Monkees. I'm sure all this was mentioned already.
Yeah.
But, they were capitalizing on Beatlemania.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it stands the test of time. The black and white was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for picking this, Adam. I would definitely watch it again. So I give it a solid 83.
83 from Mr. Rosenberg.
And that's without knowing what anybody else's scores were.
That's completely blind. That's actually pretty average.
And Eric's going to be below average.
And here I go. No,
as
honestly,
usual.
For me, I will say the music from this is 100. The story is a 40.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with a 60.
Yeah.
I'll give it a 64 since it came out in 64. I mean, I really do love the music. I said I kind of wish it was actually not them just lip syncing. I think it would have been interesting if there would have been some live footage of them actually performing. That would be more like, oh, this is unique to this movie. This is the only where you get to see these performances.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
But, but ultimately a fun watch, but not something I will watch again. So, and then there we go with that one. And then so there we go. And I'll tell you the score. We'll see if anybody has. And here's
bumps in the chat.
Coming in with a 90.
Wow.
That's right, tying Adam's score with a 90 for the Beatles. As we get ready for Dan Mania. So all right. So and Dan is there and he says ouch. I don't know why.
That was from earlier.
I will say real quick that after watching the movie and looking at the Rotten Tomato scores, I really don't understand how it's a 99 from the critics. Maybe those were old reviews because I was
I
like,
feel like they must be.
Yeah.
it must
yeah.
be. Because I was like, it's a good movie, but ain't no way it's a 99.
Yeah, it's not like one of the best movies of all time. That seems like
my understanding from the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes is those are reviews of when the movie was released.
Oh, jeez.
It's not like
So, yeah,
new
of course,
reviews of an old movie. Those are more audience reviews, right? So, but those are all critics from the time the movie was released.
And that's
Has anyone here ever seen The Ruddles?
What?
Well, I love the Ruddles.
What is that?
Can't Buy Me Cash, the Ruddles special? Because Dan's thing made me think of it because the spoof song for Help in the Ruddles movie was Ouch.
Ah, that's right. They were a Beatles parody-ish band, kind of. That's so funny.
Which
All
George
right.
Harrison loved.
It's time to move on to X-Men Days of Future Past. Hugh Jackman, Anna Paquin, Elliot Page, James McAvoy, sure, and some other people that you might have heard of.
George Harrison.
Singer directed this movie. $748 million in a gross. Rotten Tomatoes 90 for the critic,
I'm not because he's showing
91
the movie
for the audience. Adam and I were talking before the show started, and we both agreed that we felt that was somebody is styling Dan at the moment. Wow, perfect. That this is the
Is that
best
your grandfather?
movies.
He's very clean.
He's very clean.
He is very clean. It's that collar. Uh oh.
There's nobody
There's
there.
Whoa.
It's a cool
What the-
magic trick. That's
Even
very
more
impressive.
creepy. So, Adam, why did you choose X-Men Days of Future Past?
It was another one where I was scrolling through Max and I'm like, oh, I haven't seen this in a while because I've seen this one before. And I'm like, well, I haven't seen this one for a while. And then I picked it. And then after I picked it, I realized, well, it was kind of stupid to pick it because if people hadn't seen the previous movies, it might get lost. But then I was like, well, maybe not because you kind of don't have to watch the other movies, kind of, sort of.
It seemed very standalone to me.
Yeah.
I think you can appreciate it without knowing the prior movies, but I do think it adds to your enjoyment if you've seen them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think the ending lands better if you
If you
understand
know
who the people that they're showing at the end. Because all of a sudden there's all these people in the house.
The Kelsey Grammer cameo.
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of that where you're like, well, wait, now who's that girl and who's the guy?
That girl? No.
No, it is. It's who's that girl? She's back.
I would love it if Jess made a cameo in the house scene at the end. That would be amazing.
But I will say this, like, I don't know how anyone else feels about it, but the X-Men movies where it's them as their younger selves, I don't like those at all. I think they're bad. But in this movie, it works, and I guess just because of the script or whatever, or just the fact that, you got some of the older cast, mixed with the younger cast, but the younger cast movies, I don't like those at all. I don't know what it is about it, but I just don't like them.
It was so convenient that Wolverine would not look different in the past.
Well, it's interesting. I don't entirely agree with Adam. I actually like First Class. I think it's a very good movie.
Yeah.
But I think it's not as consistent. I think McAvoy is excellent, and I think Fassbender is really good. But I don't think some of the supporting characters are up to that level in the prequels.
Yeah.
And I think that does sometimes hurt them a bit. But it's the only downside of this movie, really, and it's not a big deal, but there were so many characters that you never really got to know most of them. You certainly got to know both incarnations of Professor X.
Right.
You got to know the younger Magneto, but you barely saw Ian McKellen. I mean, he really had a very trivial role in this. You never really got to know any of the other Beast. You got to know, but other than that, you never really got to know any of the younger ones. If you'd seen First Class, you'd get it, but without that, they were a little two-dimensional or one-dimensional.
Well, and without the because I mean the movie starts with like 5 people that you never really get to know too much about at all. All the people who are fighting in the opening sequence, you never actually get much of their
Which also makes those fights really confusing because you don't really understand what their powers are yet.
All right, she can open portals, and he's fire sometimes.
He's ice.
Ice guy.
I still enjoyed it though. I mean, I really do. And if I had been watching it, never having seen the other X-Men movies, though, I don't know how much that would have impacted my enjoyment.
The only other X-Men I've seen, I have First Class, and that was the one that came right before this one. Was that the immediate one?
First Class, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I've seen that one, and I've seen Days of Future Past. I actually have them both on Blu-ray, and I do like both of these. I haven't seen any other X-Men movies though.
And
I definitely recommend the first two movies highly. X-Men and X2 are both really good movies. The third one in this prequel series, Apocalypse, it's a mess.
It's awful.
And I've never even seen the fourth one.
Dark Phoenix.
Yeah.
Oh, don't. I have. You don't have to. Save yourself.
the teaser and the post-credit sequence is setting up Apocalypse, but it's just not good.
No.
And it's the same screenwriter too, which is weird because this is really good and Apocalypse is really bad.
I
just like how. Oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead. It's your movie.
Oh no, I was just saying, I just like how they didn't really, as far as the time travel aspect, it wasn't really like. I mean, it was kind of a cop out, but still, it was like they didn't really do anything like weird as far as like, oh, you got to like shoot around the sun, or you got to go 8 miles an hour. It was just like, oh yeah, I got this power.
Fly around the earth really fast.
I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna do this on each side of your head, and you'll believe it.
Well, it's just like,
tiny penny that you're.
You know, it's part of my mute. I could go ahead.
I would say I thought part of the problem was like Hugh Jackman. Like we're supposed to, he went back in time, but they didn't really make him younger. So we still saw him as current time. They kind of darkened his beard, is all I felt they did.
Yeah,
and so he's going back 40 to 50 years.
They said because of his
regeneration, it would
aged much.
Yeah.
Because of being Wolverine, he doesn't age.
That's true. Even if you watch Logan, he doesn't look that much older.
Yeah.
They should have Paul Rudd play that part then.
No. Ryan Reynolds.
I'm of two minds about the time travel thing, because on the one hand, I like their like time travel idea. Like I like the idea of like them what they were doing, hopping around to different places, trying something out, and then reversing time to like because it failed or whatever. Like the whole time hopping and the thing that little group was doing at the beginning. But I really don't like the meta time travel thing. I hate that, and I don't know. I hate that at the end. It's this weird mix of like he skipped over like the past 50 years and he has no memory of them, so that version of him just essentially doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, that's the time cop thing. That's the problem.
That's so stupid. I hate that.
Time cop. It's a happy ending for Jean-Claude Van Damme, but no, that's miserable because he missed 10 years.
Yeah,
and the person who was there the previous 10 years is gone.
The one difference here is Professor, because even in that brief scene you saw with the at the end with Wolverine and Professor X, and he really explains almost nothing to Professor X, and all of a sudden Professor X gets it because of who he is.
Well,
and it also means that Professor X could try to give him back some of his memories.
Yeah, I mean, Professor X would know because he was there when he went back into the past, so he knew it from like when he saw him come back, so he knew what had happened. But like the fact that the Logan that was there a minute before we saw him wake up at the end of the movie, that him is essentially dead. Like he lived like 50 years of his life, he's just gone. And the fact that everyone, when they were like, this is our plan, we're gonna send you into the past and rewrite history, we will all essentially die. And no one seems to even discuss that or bring up that that's maybe a thing to grapple with. It's just like a thing. And part of this, why I feel really passionately about this, is my favorite piece of time travel media, the video game Virtue's Last Reward, explicitly does not do this type of time travel and has like a whole anecdote about how this type of time travel does not make sense. And they have this whole story about like bikers picking a path at a fork in the road, and then like 90 of the 100 of them die, but then they go like 50 years down the road into the future, and then suddenly time travel happens, and do you go back and switch the route? And if you do that, it creates a branching timeline. It doesn't erase the existence of those other people. And so that version of time travel is all branching timelines. You can't change the past, you can make a new timeline. So the fact that it just like rewrites and kills everyone and no one even is like, Maybe there's another way.
On the other hand, one thing I do like about this, he's only his consciousness is going back in time, not anything physical.
Yeah.
Means it avoids some of the really ugly paradoxical things that so many time travel movies and stories wrestle with. It's and they make it quite clear, although Hank is somewhat doesn't know, but it's obviously if you change the past, then the future changes. Yep. They did. So I like the fact that they kept that simple, because there's some time travel movies you watch and you go, I have no idea what their rules are because they make no sense.
Yeah.
They constantly break their own rules.
And I don't hate it in principle. I just wish there had been some discussion from the team about we're all going to essentially die, and we'll have new versions of ourselves that are going to have this new, better life, but that's not us. And no one seems to be like,
yeah, but if you're faced
I think their lives are so miserable, they're okay with that.
You're faced with imminent death. You are faced with imminent death. That
on an almost daily basis.
That whatever future would be better.
And it's also they're willing to do that because they've watched all of their friends die.
Mm-hmm.
And if that brings their friends back and avoids this horrific future, it's just unsaid that it's worth it to them.
But it doesn't bring their friends back. It brings different versions of their friends at a different time.
They might not even be friends in the current.
Yeah, they might hate each other.
Things might be different, or you might
they
not
don't know they're back because they don't know they ever left.
Exactly.
You might not have ended up.
That is so ugly. Oh, that is horrible.
It's like Avatar meets the X-Men.
That is awful.
That looks nothing like Jennifer Lawrence.
Why does she have one human arm?
She's mid-transformation, maybe.
Well, yeah, you can swap out the human arm.
I was confused by the end because I didn't understand if the ending basically retcons all the earlier movies, and so those don't exist, or I didn't. That was the only thing I kind of didn't understand. Was so does this movie retcon everything else, or
I don't think it retconned everything because I would think that Magneto would still be out there. They would still have adversaries. Some of those things would have happened, but the whole Sentinel thing would have never happened. So it just would have been, the sort of more the storyline of the original series before the prequels.
Because basically the way it ends, it means that everything that happens in X2 doesn't happen because she kills, or is it the third one, the third one where she kills Cyclops and then Wolverine kills her at the end, and so now they're back. So I can't remember which movies it were. I forget.
And I think this is the problem. This is the problem with the X-Men series is that there's no good way to watch that. It's not like the Marvel universe where you can say, oh, here's a great way to watch the movies. They will flow through and make total sense. The X-Men movies, it's really hard to do like a watch of all the X-Men movies and have it all make sense.
I think you just watch them in the order they were made. I think that works the best.
Yeah, but then there's a lot of stuff like soon in. It's like, wait, did that stuff even ever happen? Are we erasing what happened 3 movies ago?
The next movie will explain it.
But then they branch off.
There you go.
They branch.
I just want to know when did Rebecca Romaine Stamos become Jennifer Lawrence?
Well, but
That's
it's
the
vice
younger
versa.
version.
It's
She's
vice
the younger
versa.
version.
Oh,
You have to ask John Stamos.
There you go.
Or Jerry O'Donnell.
You want to throw some numbers around?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's throw some numbers
Let's do
around
it.
there. That'd be fun. All right, let's let Adam go first because he is the chooser of the movies.
Yeah, like this is a really good movie. It's a fun movie. Like I was telling Eric earlier, I think personally this is the best of the X-Men movies. I mean, in terms of the X-Men movies, the standalone Logan movies, those are different. That's a different discussion for another day. I like all of them, but as far as like X-Men as a group, this is the best one. Like I said earlier, I don't really enjoy the ones where they're younger selves. I just don't know if it's the actors or the story sucks or I just don't like them. I think this has got, good action. The effects are actually really good for, early Marvel movie or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if it's considered a Marvel movie or not. But I think the actors, did a good job. Yeah, I'd like to see like a little bit more of the side characters' stories, but I know why they couldn't really do it because then it'd have been a 3-4 hour movie. And plus they're not really there for anything but, to move the plot along. So yeah. All that being said, I'd give it a solid 95. I'd watch this again if if I'm scrolling through and I got nothing to watch, I'll put it on, or so.
Nice.
All righty.
All right, 95. All right, let's go over to Amanda.
Yeah, so I like this movie,
Yes.
despite my complaints about the time travel, which I just wished they set up some interesting questions, and I was sad they left them kind of undiscussed. But it was still, I think, a fun movie.
So you're saying Cody would hate this movie?
That's
But
fair.
everything's
Yeah,
explained.
I don't think he would like the time travel. in this movie. I've seen First Class, but it's been like 10 years, so I don't remember most of First Class. And I felt like I was able to follow this pretty well, regardless. So I think that they did a pretty good job at making the movie understandable without having deep. I think they explained the relevant pieces, and it was mostly fine. And yeah, it's a fun movie. I really like it. I don't know if I have anything else to say. I'm gonna give it an 86. I think it's fun. I would watch it again.
86. Very reasonable. Speaking of reasonable, Wade. No, I'm kidding. Let's see what I did again.
Yeah, so this is the only X-Men movie I think I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And it was yeah, I mean I understood it pretty well. I mean, yeah, some of the characters at the beginning and in the battle at the end were ones that I had never even heard of, but kind of figured out pretty quickly what they did. And there's a lot of action and adventure, so it was pretty good for me. 85, I would say. Also,
85.
I wish that there had been more Ian McKellen. I like him. It was interesting. I seem to remember, was there another X-Men franchise prior to 2000 that didn't have all of these actors in it? That's what I was trying to remember.
Prior to 2000, no.
Because
Yeah.
I feel like that there was another movie made prior to that.
You might be thinking of the first X-Men movies that were set all in the future. That they would have been early 2000s.
Yeah, the first X-Men movie came out in 2000.
Well, I'm thinking like early 90s.
You think Fantastic Four?
No, I like that movie and understand that one because it was based on a cartoon. But I just remember working at Walmart in 93 and people talking about X-Men, and the comic books were coming through the line like crazy.
There might have been some cartoons.
There was a cartoon
Oh,
back in the
that's true.
90s.
Not
Is that
a movie.
what that was then?
Yeah, there's an X-Men cartoon, and there was video games out on like Nintendo and stuff like that.
There's
So
also the X-Files.
Yeah, that's not
Oh.
the same.
And now there's
But
Twitter, which is now known as X.
The XY Squad.
I remember
Kyle
there
XY?
being discussion about recasting these people, so I wasn't sure. And I tried to search for it, and I couldn't find anything. So
Alternate universe.
probably.
There you go.
So yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
I do kind of remember those.
it's coming back. They're coming back.
No, I'm sure.
No, they are. It's already.
Well, they're given aren't they going to use the classic costumes in the next Deadpool movie?
Yep.
Nice.
Oh, excuse me. Like Wade said, we've never seen these before. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, though, is just ingrained in everybody. I don't know how he wouldn't be.
He's the biggest Ackman of them all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Huge.
Huge. Yeah. Anyway, I have no feelings either way with this movie. It's just another action movie to me. I like Patrick Stewart. I like Ian McKellen. I knew who Patrick Stewart was in this movie. Ian McKellen, when they went back in time, and then this young guy was his name Eric?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wait a minute, is that Ian McKellen's character? I just did not grasp that at first. So I was a little confused at that point, but I think I'm going to give this one an 83.
83. Not too shabby. Speaking of not too shabby.
Yeah, it is really interesting watching the sort of threads of the Marvel properties as they wound their way through studios. And as Disney tries to continue to sort of pull them back into house again now that they own the rights to most of them. I think the main ones that were farmed out were obviously Sony still owns partial rights, if not full rights, to Spider-Man. But they have an agreement with Disney because they realize it's to their mutual advantage. Fantastic Four has always been a fiasco. They've never really had a good Fantastic Four movie. They've had one mediocre one and a bunch of bad ones. So that I think Disney now owns the rights to again.
Yes.
But X-Men is still owned by Fox, isn't it?
Well, Disney bought Fox, so no.
That's right. They got it that way. They got it the hard way. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, they're
So
now back in the fold too.
X-Men was one sort of like the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans. They really did a good job of establishing a universe and a world that made sense. The first X-Men movie is excellent. It really is. I highly recommend it. If you had any liking of this at all,
Excellent.
go back and watch the 2000 X-Men movie. And the second one's very good too. It's a bit of a different feel, but it really sort of establishes who these people are. You'd understand this movie better if you'd seen that. This movie suffered from one of the biggest problems, though, that Fox faced, which was they couldn't get out of the shadow of Wolverine. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine became that franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Every movie was centered around Wolverine after a while, for one way or another. This movie is centered around Wolverine. You know, he's the key character in this, which is great because it's a great character and Hugh Jackman plays it perfectly. But it also sometimes is to the detriment of the other characters. And yes, they've done well with it, though some of the standalone Wolverine movies have not been great. Logan is the perfect way to end the X-Men sort of arc. That is an amazing movie. It's a bit depressing, but it's an amazing movie.
Just a tad depressing.
So, you know, Jackman is both the best and worst thing about this in some ways. He's the best thing because he's just great, but he also takes screen time away. So he's part of the reason we don't really get to know these other characters all that well, because it's always about him and to a lesser degree Professor X, and to a little bit of a lesser degree Magneto and Hank. And after that, they all just sort of disappear into a background haze. That being said, I really like the movie. I just think that when you get that many characters, it's a struggle to find enough screen time for them all to have their chance. And it's sort of, but to their credit, again, they could have done the stupid thing was, well, then let's make it a 3-hour movie. But no, they kept it to a reasonably lean 2 hours and 10, which is not bad. But I do really like it. It's an 88 from me.
88. Nice. And Dan,
hello. So before we go on to that, did you guys mention in the Beatles movie that the guy that played the grandfather was the star of Steptoe and Son?
Yep.
We did talk about that briefly.
And that was what became Sanford and Son, and he was always dirty. And that's what they kept saying. That was the running joke. It was an inside joke. Anyway, back to this movie. As you all know, and Adam mentioned, I love time travel movies. And this is an interesting way to do it. This is more of the quantum leap way to do it. I can't tell where my camera is. I guess it's over there. It's right there. All right. I really enjoy this movie. And like Dave said, I'm going to go back and watch the others. I believe I've seen them all. I used to go to the theater when they came out and see these in the early aughts. And I'm going to score this one a 94.
Woo!
I really like this.
Wow.
Now, in the comments, Stacy just mentioned that Mel Gibson played Wolverine.
Yes, in 1993.
1993 movie.
Yep.
Uncanny X-Men.
I told you guys.
Oh, what?
I've never heard of this before.
Way to go for Google.
What?
Way to Google. Yeah, I missed that.
Uncanny X-Men.
I remember that. I told you I knew I worked at Walmart and people were going crazy. And I remember there were people so that when Storm was Halle Berry, and they're like, how are they changing who plays Halle Berry? Why is Halle Berry playing Angela Bassett's part? There was this big stink in 2000. So
when was this movie?
1993.
I can't find any proof of anything about it.
That's what I'm looking for too.
I don't see it on IMDb.
I think it's maybe people talking about like an uncanny. I don't know. People just making it up.
Stacy found it.
The only thing Mel Gibson did in 93 was the Chili Con Carne Club and Man Without a Face.
Yeah, I don't think this happened.
And I think he might have had a Hitler Youth meeting that year as well.
I'm so confused.
It did come out. Okay, continue.
Was it direct to
I mean,
video?
the Uncanny
James Cameron was the director.
Or was this somebody's dream project?
Or was this an alternate timeline?
The Uncanny X-Men appears to have been a comic series.
It was a comic book, yeah.
63. Yep, and there was a video game called The Uncanny X-Men in 89. But when you search for Uncanny X-Men, that's all that there is. There's a band called Uncanny X-Men. It's an Australian.
And I looked for James Cameron as a director, and there's nothing in '93 except Terminator 2.
I think you found a weird, surreal part of
look,
the.
I think you
No,
found.
I'm reading an article that says that James Cameron in '91 attempted to make an X-Men film, but the problem was they wanted Spider-Man in it, and he didn't want that to happen.
So it fell apart.
Is that what it is?
It fell apart. Yeah. It's saying,
So it was probably greenlit, never happened.
it's saying this attempt was doomed when Stan Lee asked Cameron if he had any interest in the Spider-Man. Following that, Cameron focus shifted to a never-produced Spider-Man movie, and X-Men movie languished.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Nice
Okay.
find. Interesting.
But it was in '93, and I know that they were talking about it. I knew it.
Alternate universe.
I don't
you.
picture a movie that was never made, though, driving a whole lot of sales at Walmart.
Yeah, unless it got really close to like release by the time they canceled it, that would be strange. That would actually.
It might have just been because of all the talk before the movie. Because I remember that they were talking. It was Ben Kingsley, it was Mel Gibson, Angela Bassett. I remembered those things. I think because they were talking about it, it probably pushed sales of the video games and that kind of thing. So I just remember standing at my cashier little thing, and
I don't remember you working at Walmart, so we're in a whole other universe. I know Wade worked at Walmart. I didn't know you ever worked at Walmart.
Who?
Didn't Wade work at Walmart?
Yeah. In Butler and Monaca, and I worked at the Cranberry one.
See, I don't remember you working at Walmart.
Ooh.
Love it, Walmart.
Alternate universe.
When we got married, we both worked at Walmart.
So I'm also reading some of IMDb real quick that says before Bryan Singer became attached to X-Men, 20th Century Fox, their original plan was to have Bob Hoskins as Wolverine.
Oh.
I'm not joking. That's what it's. I read.
It was a
With
really
Roger Rabbit?
well-respected actor, though, from England. So
Yeah, but he was not a physically imposing presence.
I agree.
Maybe he could have whipped himself into shape.
And then after
They should have had Paul Hogan, so it would have been like, you think that's a knife?
That was
Lots
one of
of
my
knives.
favorite bits in the X-Men movie we watched of Days of Future Past was when he goes through the metal detector and it doesn't go off, and he just sort of looks back over his shoulder like confused.
Wow, there you go.
Well, it's actually Mel Gibson as Wolverine.
One of this,
Yeah, but I don't know if that's fan art or what.
That looked like fan art to me because I don't think
fan art.
those look like Hugh Jackman mutton chops.
Yes.
the strangest random special. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay, the strangest random special feature on the Blu-ray of X-Men: Days of Future Past was apparently the director at one point had like a ulcer-like thing on his vocal cords and couldn't speak, but he realized that if he spoke in falsetto, it would not irritate it. So he was given directions for like a week in falsetto, and there's this scene where they were trying to film this like kitchen scene, and he gave them like directing advice for Jennifer Lawrence to say, "You're living in a fairy tale or in a fairyland or whatever, something like that." But said it in like this falsetto voice, and she could not stop laughing. So it's a series of them trying to film this scene, and she says the line, and then just remembers him saying it. Laughing. It's very silly.
It's Barry Gibb directing
You
it.
can hear him in the background every once in a while be like, "Stop!" And then she just like bursts out laughing again. It's very silly.
I think though, I don't want to beat this movie to death, but if you see X-Men First Class, which I realize is not Adam's favorite, but the background on Eric/Magneto in that movie tells you why he is so ruthless and cold and willing to just shoot Mystique. You know, it's like, well, because that's the best thing, that's the right thing to do. Perfectly, no hesitation, he put a bullet right through her head, and you sort of understand why he is that way if you see the prior movie.
So totally worth seeing. Well, Dan's mom loves their music. No, I'm kidding. That's a joke. That's real.
Hey, Mom, you have a score?
I do have a score. My score is 87. I like this movie a lot. I can't imagine a Jennifer Lawrence movie I don't like. So, I cosplay as Mystique. No, I didn't. But I find this
You mean you blew yourself?
You bought the action figure?
That's an Arrested Development
very
joke.
enjoyable movie, though. Very glad this came up. And so thank you, Adam, for excellent movie choices. So, all right. Well, now the complicated part. Figure out how we're going to handle this, which is picking a movie for next week. We're going to go and visit the wheel. And if you have had a chance to consider a movie for the wheel, we will find out what your sports movie is that you would like to throw on the wheel. All right, so it is theme week where you get to pick a movie from a certain theme, Dan.
I have a question.
Yes.
Now, this is for next week.
Yeah.
Should we also pick the person that gets to then pick next week? Give them the week to come up with their movie.
That is correct. We should.
Yes, we have 2 spins happening tonight.
So we'll do that. We'll talk about what you have been watching, and then we'll do the final spin for 2 weeks. So I have a chance to reset the wheel. Does anybody have a sports movie they would like to put? One sports movie they would like to put on? Adam, first off the bat, what do you got?
Caddyshack.
Nice. All right. Anybody else?
I second Caddyshack.
Oh, another Caddyshack.
We count like a variety of sports, right?
Yeah, any sport.
It's wide open.
Any sport
Okay.
whatsoever.
I'm going with I, Tonya.
Oh, that's a good one.
I, Tanya.
I've
No,
watched
we
it
did
a
not.
million times.
Oh, I love that.
And playing the role of Dan this week is Stacy.
Didn't we see this one already?
No.
I'm going to throw out Rollerball.
Rollerball.
One, but
Oh, the original, right?
Streaming anywhere?
Not the remake.
which one do you think is better?
Oh, the original with James
Original.
Caan.
Definitely original. That's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'll have to find out if it's streaming anywhere.
Chris. No,
Oh, I'm
Chris.
so
Chris-
torn.
And part of me, I wouldn't do it to you, but part of me wants to pick Slam Dunk Ernest. But
Well, I'm gonna
Hey,
There's
Vern.
nothing wrong with Ernest.
put my vote in for Caddyshack again. After the Groundhog Day, I could live with a little more Bill Murray. So
if it were streaming, I'd pick Slapshot, but it's not.
Dave, I think you and Stacy are the last two to choose.
I'm trying to find
I
a
am-
name of mine. I know what it is.
I'm going a little off the reservation,
Oh boy.
but it is streaming, and I'm picking Heaven Can Wait with Warren Beatty.
Good one.
Is it sports? movie?
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a
Yes,
football
it is.
player.
He's a football player.
I didn't know that.
The
Mine
new
is
version is Chris Rock as a comedian.
Yeah.
That's a
mine
straight-
is Facing the Giants.
Facing the Giants.
Is that the Kansas City Chiefs movie?
Oh man. And I don't know if there's anybody in the comments. I haven't heard anybody hasn't said anything in the comments for quite a while. So I get the feeling we've got our list.
There was a couple of more I was noodling around with. I almost picked Rocky, the original.
Oh.
And then I just watched it on YouTube for free. The movie Little Giants. That movie's funny.
What is it?
I thought about picking Jerry Maguire for a bit.
Oh, that
I
would be
appreciate
yeah.
the formatting of I, Tonya as if it were like a Apple product.
I Tonga.
That is certainly.
I Tonga.
Well, that's
I
actually
like it that way.
No,
it's
cute.
it's like a wrench that
pretty
you
good,
hit
right?
people under the kneecap with,
appreciate
made
it.
by Apple.
All right, I think we're ready for this. We gave it a shuffle, and let's see what our sports movie that you can watch after the Super Bowl. It's gonna be Heaven Can Wait.
Dear Lord.
All right, just like that.
That was Warren Beatty.
Yeah, Warren Beatty.
Oh.
Is this
It is streaming on
depressing?
Amazon.
There you go. That's,
Depressing.
that's even better.
Is it a depressing sports movie?
No,
Okay.
it's a comedy. It's Diane Cannon, Buck Henry, Warren Beatty.
Nice.
No, it's
Honestly,
it's actually a remake of an old movie, an old black and white movie called Here Comes Mr. Jordan. But it's modernized and made a little more accessible.
I told you I saw Heaven Can Wait when my mother dropped us off at the theater and we thought Star Wars was playing. And she left.
At the cinema movie theater.
Yeah, and we ended up watching Heaven Can Wait because it's all that was playing.
It's a good movie.
And
Not to be mistaken with the Kevin James
sitcom.
Kevin James
That way you can
sitcom
get-
Kevin Can Wait. Totally different.
Yeah, you can tell all the kids at school the next day about the great movie you saw, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I just remember it on
re-release. I don't think
forever.
I don't think I was getting dropped off at 8 with a friend or my brother, but that is the first time I saw Heaven Can Wait. So and I might not have seen it since. So this will be very interesting to go back to Heaven Can Wait. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what else you've been watching. If I can find a button, there's a button.
Are we spinning for the week after?
We are.
Okay.
We're gonna do that after we
He's got
have
to
a
adjust his.
conversation, so I
Okay.
can reset the wheel. So I can reset the wheel and figure out who all gets to be on the wheel. So
All right.
I have work to do, Stacy.
Making sure we know what's happening.
Yeah, I promise we will spin the wheel
All
to
right.
find out who gets to pick the movie. Tell us their movie pick next week.
I started watching The West Wing with Josh
Ooh,
since he
From
kind
the
of
Do you
beginning?
like it?
I didn't know he was in The West Wing.
Well, I was that was the picture I took earlier. I was driving right by The West Wing.
Oh.
He's not totally into it. The
No.
Rob Lowe character is just not the same as he is on Parks and Rec.
No.
And right now they're watching Superstore, which is one of his favorite shows. We watched a bunch of those. And the new season of Curb Your Enthusiasm started last night, so I watched that.
It was funny.
Yeah.
Larry David was on Seth Meyers this past week because of the past season. And Seth mentioned, he goes, "No, I think it was the last time you were on, right? Because we did a bit, and you said, yeah, I'll put you in an episode of Curb, and this is your last season, right?" That didn't happen. And Larry just goes, yeah, it's not going to.
I'm pretty sure you're not going to be in it.
What's up with him trying to look like a grandma now with those glasses?
That's just part of the episode.
Oh, is it? You sure?
Yeah.
I could.
Oh yeah, I watched the episode.
Well, no,
Just for this-
I thought I saw him doing press, and he had those glasses on doing press as well.
He might have been to promote the episode. It's just, there's a unless I fell asleep during part of it last night, there's something that doesn't make sense. Like a woman tries on his glasses and she stretches them, and of course they fall in the toilet, and so he has to borrow her glasses until his can get fixed. It's like, well, if her had stretched his glasses, then her glasses would be stretched as well, and they wouldn't fit him either.
Yeah.
But he ends up wearing her glasses.
Wacky.
Yeah, but the very closing scene is pretty funny. We'll just say it's something that happens in Georgia.
We watched a very odd Netflix movie starring Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson.
Ooh, Unicorn Store?
Yes.
Yes!
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
Love that movie.
Oh,
It
my
is.
God.
It is an interesting movie,
Yeah,
Movie.
say the least.
as does your sister.
Yes. Yeah, I really enjoyed Unicorn Store. Again, I like Brie Larson in almost anything though, so I'm a fan.
But you didn't like the rice.
It's so quirky.
You
It's
like
It is so weird and
That's
quirky
very weird.
and unexpected. Yeah.
But her and Samuel Jackson are like really good friends. They were in Kong together, one of the King Kong movies together, and obviously in the Marvel movies together, and Unicorn Store.
And Unicorn Store.
Yeah.
Which is that part of the MCU?
Oh, 100%.
Or is that the DCU?
That movie is one of those things that Reagan discovered and watched over and over and over again in the past few years. That and the Basmati Blues movie.
That one's a little rougher.
I kind of liked it.
I liked it better than Unicorn Store. It made more sense.
I enjoyed Unicorn Store.
It's odd.
It's
It is odd.
really odd. It is so adorably odd. Oh, doesn't that make you want to be an artist?
It doesn't portray the art world in a very positive light, though.
Yes.
Honey, you remember Kevin?
There you go. And it's a very interesting Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes, it is a very unusual Samuel L. Jackson role.
Yeah. Fantastic.
But speaking of Samuel L. Jackson, we also were 2 of the 10 people that went to see Argyle this weekend. This past weekend.
Oh.
Which apparently it really tanked at the box office.
That's
It wasn't
wear a
bad.
sweater?
It was an over-the-top weird action movie, which is what his stuff, Vaughn's stuff, is. It wasn't as good as the Kingsman movie.
That's what I was wondering. Is that the Kingsman universe?
They sort of tease at the end that it is. It isn't really mentioned in during the movie, but there's a post-credit sequence that sort of tries to tie it in.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't recommend going to a theater to see it if it's still playing anywhere, but it is, if it comes on, well, that's right, it's going to be on Apple TV Plus because Apple paid $200 million just for the rights.
Oh wow!
And they are not going to make that back, let alone all the other
box
expenses.
office, and you've got that.
Yeah,
Yikes!
it's not bad. Again, there's some. I don't know. Margaret enjoyed it more than I did, but I didn't enjoy it. But I probably wouldn't go out of my way to see it
There's
again.
no unicorn store.
No unicorn store. No.
Speaking of Apple, if you like Godzilla, the Monarch series on Apple TV is pretty damn good. With Kurt Russell and his son playing the same guy, it's pretty good.
I've heard good things about that.
Yeah, it's really good. It's pretty interesting seeing Kurt Russell as an older version of his son.
Yeah, that's just typecasting.
His son, who was Captain America, right?
No,
Did his son play the other Captain America when?
Oh yeah. In the
Whatever the
series,
character
Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
And then the final one for me is Amanda did, as she tends to do, she tends to find odd British or Australian or New Zealand TV series and expose us to them.
Yeah.
And
Reagan
there's
does
a
that.
weird one from New Zealand that we have now watched 6 of the 8 episodes
Oh,
that are out.
good! I'm glad you're watching.
Guy Montgomery's Guy Mont Spelling Bee.
What?
It's a comedian from New Zealand who has other comedians come on, and he does sort of almost like an at midnight, after midnight type of spelling bee where, yes, they're playing for points, but at the same time, the rules are not fair, and it is not intended to be. And it can be very funny when it hits.
It's a mix of like normal spelling, but also like spell the word night. And I'm not going to tell you which version of night you have to spell. So it's like a 50-50 guess. And if you ask him to use it in a sentence, the sentence will contain both definitions of the word night. Or like spell, or just like, I don't know, arbitrary things. There's a really good segment where he'll dive through their social media history and pull up like an old tweet they made from like 10 years ago. And they'd be like, you spelled this word wrong in this tweet. Spell it exactly how you spelled it in that tweet to get points.
There's another game they play where they have to pick someone out of the audience and spell their name. And of course, all they can go by is, okay, that person doesn't look too ethnic. They probably have a fairly easy name. And he brought it out. There was one watch recently, they brought the guy up and he goes, what's your name? And Mark. And the guy goes, yes. We go, well, you have to spell the last name too. What's your last name? Or something like Twiddle or something like that. And then the next person tried to be clever and go, I'll bet that's his wife next to him. I'm going to pick her. And then she spelled the last name right, but got the first name wrong. So it's really pretty bizarre.
Yeah, or they have cute ones where it's like, we asked 5-year-olds to spell this word. Spell it the same way as the 5-year-old did.
But it is funny.
It's very silly.
And I think there's actually the entire season 1 is currently on YouTube, although it may disappear again.
That's awesome, though. Wow. All right. Well, I do have the ratings from where our movies ended this week. I know you're all super excited to know. Hard Day's Night coming in the 70s in our not so bad category. Beating out the in-laws and not quite a street cat name. So, you know, the Beatles ending up with a 79, and then X-Men: Days of Future Past all the way up in our top list.
Nice.
88.29, beating out Jumanji and The Nightmare Before Christmas. People really like X-Men: Days of Future Past. So, how about that?
Awesome.
Nice.
Crazy awesome. All right, shall we spin a wheel? I think we should. I think I've got this right. We'll see if I have this right. See who gets to pick a movie for 2 weeks from now. So, according to my records, Amanda and Adam have both chosen movies this year. Everybody else is on the wheel.
Since my name came up with the theme, I will recuse myself for this week.
Are you sure?
Yes.
All right, Dan, do you think your mom should be on this?
Mom, are you still watching? Question mark. What am I texting her?
She didn't have a score for.
She might not have. I think she had some other stuff she was doing tonight, and she's like, "Oh, if you're not going to be on,
I
don't need to see all those other people." She didn't say that.
Those losers. I don't need to see those losers.
She didn't say that. I joke. I kid. Because she was on before I was.
All right, I'm shuffling and I'm spinning. It's down to 4 of us. It's going to be the writers or a member of EriDan. Let's see what we've got here.
And this is to choose next week, so you don't have to pick. You have an entire week to research.
Pick right now. You have yourself a little time. Wade. You get to spend your week, Wade, obsessing over what movie you might want to choose.
And I would like to be back on next week. I just didn't want to pick have a chance of coming up 2 weeks in a row.
That's fair.
Oh, that's part of the fun.
Thank you, Dave.
Very nice. So, all right, Wade, you got a week to think about what movie you want to suggest for the week after.
Because Dave would have picked The Longest Yard.
And that was on my short list of movies to pick for a sports themed movie.
And I'm actually, I don't think the sequel is that horrible, or the reboot with Adam Sandler.
I don't think it's awful. It's not as good as the original.
No, but it's not. It doesn't drop off as much as Heaven Can Wait.
Agreed.
From
and I also
Beatty
thought
to Chris
about.
Rock.
I thought about another movie, and I decided I would do Adam a solid, and because it's a Will Ferrell movie, and not pick Talladega Nights. So.
It's such a good.
Oh, that one's not bad. Ricky Bobby, that one's not that bad.
Okay, so that's an acceptable
He doesn't
Will Ferrell
hate
movie.
everything. That Will Ferrell
Well, it's got John C. Reilly in it, so you know.
It does indeed.
Yeah. If you're not first, you're last.
It's good life.
Dear little sweet baby Jesus.
Amazing. Oh wow. I had mentioned before online that we watched the movie Snowpiercer, which is honestly a really good movie. I haven't watched the TV series yet.
Nor have I.
I want to now. But it is an awfully violent, bloody movie. We're like,
it is indeed.
So we're all gonna fight with axes now. Let's go.
It's pretty brutal. It really is. I saw it about a year and a half ago.
Woo!
Actually, it may have been a little longer. It still felt like it was peak pandemic is when I watched it.
But very, very interesting movie. So
Is that the one where they're on a train? Okay.
Yeah.
And it's got Guy Pearce.
And who's the guy who runs it? Yeah.
Oh, it's Ed Harris.
Oh, that is Ed Harris. Yes.
Ed Harris is the conductor, I guess you would say, the creator of the train.
Yes.
Wait. Is that the one where they split the train up by rich and poor or something like that?
Effectively, yes.
Okay. I've seen the trailers for that. Okay.
Honestly, I think it's worth watching. I thought it was going to be kind of stupid, but honestly, I'd seen somebody recommend it, and I decided to take it a shot.
It's like a lot of dystopian movies. It's even if you respect the movie, you have to be in the right frame of mind because they can be pretty depressing at times.
It's definitely that kind of movie.
Yeah.
Oh.
Mad Max-ish type.
Yeah, it's not an optimistic look at the future.
Those are movies too that I never understood the hype for. The Mad Max movies, they're all right, but I don't know why everyone gushes about them. But
I think number 2 is excellent. The Road Warrior, when it first came out, I saw it in theater, and I absolutely love that. I think the first one is okay, especially given how tiny its budget was. It already jumped the shark in the third movie, so yeah.
Tina Turner.
Yeah. Although that part of it was better than the stupid kids living in the caves kind of. That was just weird.
Yeah, that was definitely a weird movie. All right. Well, you got a week.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, please.
I was going to say the other night when I was at the hotel for work, I was bored and I was flipping through the channels and I watched Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And let me say, not a good Indiana Jones movie. It's okay. It's okay, but it's not very good.
Well, the problem, the sidekick became so annoying in that.
Short round. Don't rip on short round.
Sorry, short round to me is the worst part of the movie.
Dr. Jones, Dr. Jones.
You know, and he ends up in
The Goonies.
In
Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Exactly. Thank you. Those are words.
No, I just thought the story was really weak. It was a really weak story for Indiana Jones.
There's a very clear ordering of Indiana Jones movies. The first one is the best. The third one is second best.
Yeah.
You can usually rank those pretty unambiguously.
And then after that one was over, Crystal Skull came on. I said, nope, and turned the TV off.
Yeah. Crystal Skull is a train wreck.
It's rough to do a watch of all 5 of those movies.
Dial of Destiny was pretty good.
It was all right.
Yeah,
I admit I haven't seen that one yet. So.
Yeah.
So Heaven Can Wait is 1978, which means, yes, my mother dropped me and my brother off in the theater when I was 8 years old.
Well, yeah.
It's pretty good.
And unfortunately, you found your way home.
And we did after this fantastic, weird movie.
It's good. It's basically Star Wars, right? I think it's probably
it's the same,
Same basic idea.
Very, very similar.
Yeah.
We'll be looking for the similar themes. It's an Oscar winner, apparently, according to Amazon.
Yeah. James Mason. Yeah. Who directed? Was it Buck Henry he directed too? No, Warren Beatty. Oh, Warren Beatty and Buck Henry co-directed it. Okay.
On a totally unrelated side note, for lunch today, I went to a sushi place where a robot brings you your food.
Oh,
fun.
Yeah, it's like this robot. It's got 3 little compartments on it, and it goes to each table and says, please take your food from the tray that's lit blue, and you take your food, and then it goes to the next table, drops off the food, and you have to order everything through a QR code on the phone. And yeah, so the only human interaction you get is when you first walk in, they see your table, get you your drinks, and then you have to QR code the menu, and you order your food off the menu, and then the robot brings it to you.
It comes to your table and goes, "Come with me if you want to live."
If you want to eat.
Speaking of that, I got to go because it's time for me. My battery's about to die in here. They keep buzzing. I got to go watch Superstore. And hang out with Josh one more night until tomorrow.
All
Cool.
right.
See you next week.
Cool.
See ya. There goes
I want to
Dan.
end it for everybody. Hold on, let me get out of here.
Yeah, please don't end the whole thing. That would be bad.
I don't know where the button is for me to do that.
Dan
Just
from DC.
hang up.
Is he part of the DCEU?
Sorry, I'll just do this.
Just hang up your phone.
Hang up your phone.
There you go. It's just like that.
Yes, very weird. Very weird. I mean, it wasn't weird. It was weird, but it was interesting.
That is kind of interesting.
And there was rules, you had to order in 15-minute increments. You couldn't order a bunch of stuff and then 2 minutes later order more stuff. You had to order stuff and then wait 15 minutes and order, then wait another 15 minutes and order. You can only be there an hour and a half. And if you ordered food and didn't eat it, they charge you extra.
We did when we were in Japan. We did eat at a sushi restaurant that has the sushi train that goes around that you can then pull plates off of.
Oh, the conveyor belt. Yeah.
The carousel of sushi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got my fill. It was $20 for all you can eat. So it was
Nice.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it was good sushi too. It wasn't sometimes you go to a Chinese buffet or something, and you get sushi from there, and it's like, ugh. No, this is actually really good stuff.
As we described it here in Western Pennsylvania, it wasn't giant eagle sushi.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Supermarket sushi.
Oh,
Yeah, supermarket sushi,
There you go.
which isn't horrible, but isn't high quality either.
Necessarily a good.
Nope. The worst sushi I ever had was I got some sushi once from Walmart that apparently came pre-frozen, and they thawed it out and then put it. Yeah. Anyways,
Oh,
I didn't know at the time. I was like, oh look, there's sushi at Walmart, so I bought it, and then I was like, this tastes like it was just like thawed out.
Oh,
Great.
Not buying that.
That sounds
That's
delicious.
what you want.
that does sound awesome. Well, now that Adam's made everybody hungry. No, I'm kidding.
Go get sushi.
We came across, going through old receipts, Eric, we came across the sushi birthday party receipt
Oh, the sushi
a
bomb.
few months ago. Yes.
They have good food there.
Yeah, they did.
Food there.
It wasn't $20 though.
No,
No, it was not funny.
definitely not. All right. Well, you have a week to watch yourself some Heaven Can Wait on Amazon Prime. And then next week, we'll find out what Wade has chosen for us for the following week. Following week, I believe. Oh, I should check this. I should check this before I get ahead of myself. Let's see. The following week after that
President's Day.
will be the 19th. Okay, yeah, so we're good. Want to make sure, in case want to make sure his show wasn't landing on Valentine's Day.
Have you had any more thoughts of possible
That's
March
next
themes?
Wednesday.
Any more thoughts of what?
Possible March themes?
No, not yet. You have to wait.
Ooh.
Ooh.
So
It's
excited.
going to be a Chainsaw Man theme.
That's right, exactly. You never know. Yeah, we're gonna have the executive leadership will have to have a meeting to determine the theme.
Okay, the brain trust will. Yeah.
That's right, exactly. Dan and all his rules. You know how he is. All right, everybody, have a wonderful week. We'll see you back here next Monday night for Heaven Can Wait. See ya. Bye, bye, bye.
Goodbye.